Hey y'all, it's Laura, and I am here to talk with you guys about something very near and dear to my heart, white cardstock. I know a lot of us use white cardstock as backgrounds, as matting from our photos. It is a very integral part of our paper crafting, no matter what level you use it at. Maybe you just use it to create borders around your pattern paper backgrounds. However you use it, it's so important to find that perfect white, to find that crisp color and the weight of the paper that fits exactly your needs. It needs to be heavy enough to handle my layering, but yet thin enough for me to cut it easily and not have to fight with my trimmer. So I've been on a journey trying to find the perfect white cardstock, and I thought I'd take you along with me to compare and contrast several different brands and styles and show you the huge variety of colors that are white cardstock. So here are the 8 pieces of cardstock that I have in my stash, all of them labeled as white. They range in about 6 different companies, I believe, and they have different weights as well. So let me first tell you what's what, and then let's talk about the differences between the cooler tones and the warmer tones, and what is the perfect one in my opinion, and how this compares to the most commonly used paper products, because that's the big thing, is how does it match up with companies that we use most often. So I've put down some black cardstock here in the background so that I can show you more carefully the differences in color without my white desk interfering with the shades, because it definitely was doing that. So this first one here is American Crafts white cardstock. It's on the cool end. It actually reads as kind of gray, and it's one that I used to use a lot and then found that it was very gray with some of my collections, and I wasn't loving that. The second one, they all have labels. The second one is from Hamilco, and it is cover cardstock. It is a little less gray than the American Crafts, but still has a bit of that tinge to it. And I hope the camera is picking up that difference there, because those are very, very gray compared with the rest. The 3 in the center are neutral gray, neutral whites, and don't really have a hard cool or warm tone. They're pretty neutral overall. The first one here is from Felicity Jane. Oh, I forgot to tell you the weights. So the American Crafts cardstock is 80 pound, Hamilco is 100 pound, Felicity Jane is 65 pounds. So even though it's one of my favorites, it's a nice neutral white, it is a little bit thinner than a lot of the other papers. Now these are all generally about the same price, which is why I chose these ones to use. There are certainly higher quality and different ranges of brands, but I didn't want to spend a lot of money per page for white cardstock because I do a lot of scrapping, and it's not frugal of me to spend a ton of money on the white cardstock. I'll use that for the embellishments and the pattern paper. So Felicity Jane has a nice neutral white, but it is 65 pounds, so it's not super thick, and it isn't great for adding a ton of layers on top of. It is brilliant for matting your photos, however, so I do recommend that one. It's also a pretty good price point. Now, the next one here is from Basil, and it is Coconut Swirl. Now, it does have a slightly cooler tone, but it's not gray. So it is a nice neutral white, and it works quite well for backgrounds. However, it is 80 pound, and it is harder to find. That's the only thing about Basil. I love the Coconut Swirl. I have been able to find some at a cherry on top, but not a lot of large quantities of it. So keep that in mind. Even though it's a very good neutral white, it's not widely available. This next one here is from Doris, and it is an 80 pound. No, this one's 65 pound, and even though it is a smooth, it is very rough. So Doris tends to be a little bit cheaper, but it's only 65 pound, and it has a kind of a rough texture, so it wouldn't be brilliant for stamping. So keep that in mind as well. The rest of these are pretty smooth, The American Crafts is textured on one side and smooth on the other, but the rest of these are pretty smooth. That is the one that stands out to me as being kind of rough textured, and I think that's just because it's a lower end brand. The next one here is Paper Studio from Hobby Lobby, and it has a slight warm color, as you can see, compared to these three neutral whites, and I really like this one a lot. It is an 80 pound, but it's a little on the thinner side for an 80 pound. I do think though it could hold up pretty well to layering, and I do like that it is a bit of a warmer white, which for some collections is kind of nice without going into cream. So the next one here, these two are both from Cardstock Warehouse. This one is called Smart White, and this one is called Recycled White. And both of these two are a little rough cut, and I'm not super impressed with this brand, to be honest with you. They are both warmer whites as well, and this recycled white is practically beige. So I'm not a fan of this one, to be honest with you, and was really disappointed when it came in, but I think it's a nice comparison and shows you the broad range of what white means. Now, to really figure out your perfect white, which color would match your favorite collections most often, the best thing to do is to grab a few papers from your collections that have plenty of white background and compare and contrast. So, for example, Cocoa Vanilla is one of my ultimate favorite collections. And when I put this down onto these papers, I was actually very surprised at how well this went with the American Crafts white. It does have a bit of this gray tone to it, and it's just the paper that they use. So either of these two here, the Hamilco or the American Crafts, works really well with the Cocoa Vanilla. It does lean that gray tone. However, when I bring in something like Pink Paisley, you'll notice it's a much warmer white. And it goes much better with these neutrals in the center, and possibly even this one here, which was the Paper Studio choice. So for American Crafts, that Paper Studio from Hobby Lobby is a great choice as well. Now, when I bring in something like Pink Fresh Studio, it's a little bit more neutral, and it works really well with these three neutrals in the center here. And so for if I'm using Pink Fresh Studio, something in this neutral area is better for me. However, then we get into some tricky ones, like crepe paper. Crepe paper often uses a warm toned white, and this is something I don't use a ton, but if you scrap a lot with crepe paper, these very, very gray whites don't coordinate well with this and quite often make this look brown. Whereas a warmer white is going to make this blend in more beautifully and be a lot easier to mix and match with. Then you have the outliers. Simple Stories. Now this is not a Simple Stories white, but it is a very common color in their backgrounds. It's kind of a yellowy cream tone, and it works beautifully with this recycled white from Cardstock Warehouse, but mixed with some of these cooler whites just looks a bit odd to my eye. So keep in mind what collections you use most often when choosing the perfect white for you. Now, I don't use Simple Stories or crepe paper terribly often, and so I would likely not be looking at those. I typically reach for Cocoa Vanilla, Pink Paisley, and Pink Fresh Studio most often. And for me, the happy medium here falls on the Basil Coconut Swirl. And so for me, that is my go-to white cardstock. It's a neutral white, it's a crisp white, and it's a good thickness for my layering. However, I do also keep the Hamilco as well, just because it blends so beautifully with Cocoa Vanilla, and because I'm on their design team, I want to make sure that I am picking a white cardstock that will blend beautifully for those layouts. Now, I hope this video was helpful, and if you have any questions about the cardstocks that I've included, and if you have any suggestions for other white cardstocks that you love, please keep in mind that these were all roughly within the 50 cents per sheet range. The exception to that was the Hobby Lobby Paper Studio, which was significantly cheaper. So keep that in mind. I was trying not to spend $2 a sheet on cardstock because I use it so frequently. But that's it for today, guys. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and until next time, bye.